with Paul Daner, Mark Salafo. Kick off the weekend, all right. It's the Growler Friday show. It's Dey Light.
All right, welcome into the latest edition of Dey Light on a Friday in the middle of the hot summer. Mark, how we doing?
I'm doing great. It's good to not be in a hotel room for this episode of the podcast. It's great to be back here in Cincinnati just in time for the 99-degree weather. I'm loving it.
Congratulations. I actually would have liked to have seen some pillows still stacked up behind you in your new house. I just because I enjoyed it so much last week as you made a visually appealing setup out of almost nothing in that hotel room. I think you get creative as well in your house.
Yeah, you got to have some Easter eggs for our YouTube viewers. So I'm going to work on that now that I'm a little bit settled here. But I'm doing good. How are you, Paul? What flag is flying today?
Well, we've got the Cincinnati pride flag. So it's the Cincinnati logo, but
there's a Cincinnati logo?
Yeah, the Cincinnati flag. You know there's a Cincinnati flag, right?
No, of course I don't know. I think Cincinnati has its own owner of the Cincinnati flag.
That's not true at all. It's actually, you see it all over the place. Just open your eyes, okay? So the Cincinnati flag, they made a version of it where it has waves kind of that go through it in the middle. The waves, they made them into rainbow. So we fly that for portions of June whenever we're, in and out. Like I might change out for the Reds. For this weekend, home series against the Red Sox, going down there a couple of times. Maybe I might switch it out. We'll see how I feel. That's going to be kind of a lunchtime decision, but we've got a ways to go.
I think you should just bring your Reds flag with you to the games and just kind of hold it up, wave it around, be that kind of guy.
If they would let me bring it in, I would do it. Trust me, if it was possible, I would definitely do it. I love to wave a flag.
If anybody could sneak a flag around, I would expect it to be you. So it's kind of disappointing that you haven't schemed a way around this. But it is nice to know.
The flag is not the problem; it's the pole. You can't.
Oh, you can fashion a pole. Or just wave it in your hands and stuff. You
can't wave it in your hands. This is clearly spoken from a man with no true flag waving experience. To think that you can just wave it in your hands. All right.
Well, I think that it's. Yeah, maybe you could steal a cop's nightstick and use that as the pole and just really elevate the crimes that you're going to commit to wave your flag around Great American Ballpark.
It's quite popular to get tased at a Reds game now, so might as well go ahead.
Oh, that would elevate the show.
It would.
We're talking about
Imagine all the attention.
Period. Yeah, local podcast mogul Paul Daner Jr. and you just have the Growler flag and just see how long you can make it before you go down. That would be pretty epic. You can't deny it.
Yeah. It's pretty embarrassing, actually, now that you mention it, that we don't have a Growler flag yet. That should fly, sort of like an on-air button, Whenever we're recording, we fly the Growler flag.
You need to get that settled before training camp. And what better sign that we're in this dead period that we get to open with another flag rant. But, hey, I did enjoy Lou on the show. He had a flag in his background. That's a nice... Really
Shout out to Lou Anarumo. Who came on, and he did. He had the American flag up behind him. He knew how we roll around here. But great interview. Obviously, great for him to join us and talk a little bit about the off season for the defense. If you haven't heard that from PD and J, go back in your feed now. Of course, you can watch all of this on YouTube on our YouTube channel. Go check that out. The Growler podcast over there. You can watch full episodes. You can watch some of the best segments of the week if you don't want to dive all the way into us talking about flags and other things. But it's all there for you to go back into the archives as far back as you want to go, and lots of new fun stuff up there all the time. So make sure you're following us on YouTube. But yeah, thanks to Lou for joining. That was a great conversation, and a lot of good stuff came from it. I have a story up a little bit more on Lou talking about some of the background defensively with defensive backs and how they're going. Obviously, it's a big transitional year there with looking for young players to get better, new players showing up, a lot of moving pieces this offseason, and he was pretty good on all that stuff. So there's a story up in The Athletic if you want to go give that a read as well. There's not a lot of news happening because it is a dead period, although we do have the training camp schedule.
That's exciting.
Out now. Whoa!
I like it. Here's my question for you, though. And this is not even a user submitted question. This is a Mark submitted question. Explain to me what's the play for training camp? Because I went down once last year because my wife made me go down, and it's a cool fan experience. We got stuck in a huge line to get in because we did not pick the right time to go. But what advice do you have for people about if they're trying to pick a day to go down, or what should they expect from their training camp experience?
The line is there's no way around it at this point, as far as I can tell. I mean, it's just too popular. It didn't used to be like this, but Burrow effect has turned training camp into a big deal. There's only so many people that can get in, and there's a time everybody wants to get there. Everyone wants to get in the front because it's general admission, standing, sitting. There's only so many seats because you have the bleachers, and once the bleachers are full, everyone just stands around the ropes, and it can be hard to see what you want to see, get close. If you want autographs, that's a big thing for people. You don't know who's going to sign at the end of every practice. It's for kids, really. So like adult autograph seekers are kind of frustrating to watch.
Yeah, embarrassing, humiliating.
Yeah. I didn't want to. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying like when you see kids starting to get pushed out of the way and stuff, that's kind of embarrassing. But so that's you don't go there thinking that you're definitely going to get Burrow's autograph. In fact, that's very rare, or rare-ish, I should say. It just doesn't happen all the time. You just want to get down there and try to find a spot and kind of stay there, get a good spot and stay there, because it does fill in quickly. Know that you're going to be in lines, know that that's part of it. And just kind of enjoy the up close of it. If you can get to the top of the bleachers, you can see the backfield and the front field. And the other problem is you oftentimes they have two fields, and they'll practice all the way on a far field, and you can hardly see. Know that that's a possibility too, that you might not be able to see almost any of the good stuff. So I think the top of the bleachers is your best spot for viewing, if you get there.
But it is cool experience because you get a lot closer than you're going to get in the game. You get a better appreciation for the size and physicality of some of these guys and just their athleticism. So it is a cool experience. I do recommend it for Bengals fans.
Yeah, there's lots up close, and you will there will be players signing autographs after, like that will happen. So you
do podcast hosts sign autographs if we find you down there?
I implore people to not let me sign any of their things and bring down the value of it. You can ask. I don't think you should, and nor do I want to sign it because I don't think that you'll like the value going directly down.
But if somebody brings you a growler flag, you're going to put your signature on that guy,
right? Okay. Yeah, obviously, if someone shows up with a growler flag, I'm signing that. I mean,
you shouldn't. You shouldn't
really any flag.
Yeah, any flag's going to skyrocket in value if you get that PDJ on there. But you shouldn't discount podcast hosts. This is a great time to be a podcast host. A podcast host was recently hired as the head coach of the LA Lakers. That's when has that ever happened before in sports?
I don't know, but if one bad season happens, I feel like Zach Taylor knows that he's in trouble because I'm coming for him. Me and Mo will be my director of common sense / offensive coordinator. You can be. You want to be a special teams guy?
I feel like I got to stay as a man of the people just so we can keep the podcast going. It'll be the coach and still just a regular guy out there.
Man, if we're collecting NFL checks, you think we need the podcast still?
Okay, I will take the special teams. I've got special teams. I can't wait to extend Brad Robbins.
You can handle the new kickoff.
Yeah, the new kickoff. Nobody can scheme that up better than me. I'm going to get some rugby guys in here. It's going to be great. And
it's going to be great.
But you know what?
Anything can happen.
We also saw another podcast group, the New Heights crew. They've invested in a local beer company. And I don't know. I feel like, is it time for us to bury the hatchet with those people? I know we had a New Heights feud back in the spring. You stole Dan Pitcher because they wanted to interview him on their show, I think. You got him first. They came back, did a show in our city, took Joe Burrow as their guest. But now I think maybe we just bury the hatchet. They're investing in local companies. And maybe it's time to move past it. Maybe we need to get a different local beer company involved with our podcast. I don't know.
It's not a bad idea. Not a bad. We're actually, I mean, we're in conversations about all our season partnerships right now, which is super exciting. And so if anybody wants to be partner in some creative way or somehow in the season, holler at us, growlerpodcast@gmail.com. You can send us something. We'd love to do it. Look, we'll take on any and all. Maybe that's how we end up back in a war with them. Maybe that's our feud. Maybe a competing local beer company says, you know what? I don't like these New Heights guys either trying to come in, outsiders coming in, right? How about stay Cincinnati and restart the war? Maybe that's what this ends up being.
Yeah, we can really go either way in this war. It depends on which beer company reaches.
This war that we've totally invented. Yeah,
the war that I think they kind of initiated it, but agree to disagree on that front. But yeah, so if you want to reach out to us, get involved as the season starts to ramp up. This is the period to do it. This is when we're talking to companies and seeing who's a good fit, who's not a good fit. I remember, we picked up good people that listen to this show. Stanyo, he's a growler guy. And then Diddy's people, they wanted to advertise. We kicked them to the curb before this even started. And then his life kind of fell apart. So we are selective. We don't take just anybody. So that's important to remember. But you can reach out, start those convos, and we can kind of go from there at that point. Are you ready to jump into some questions?
Let's do it. Let's do some question time and see what we got today.
So keep sending those questions to thegrowlerpodcast@gmail.com. Keep sharing the show. That's huge. Shout out to our new listeners, or maybe not new listeners, but new emailers from Northern Ireland, Senegal, and New Hampshire. Put those dots in the listening map. Our first question is,
Senegal. I didn't know that.
We're getting around the globe again.
Yeah, we are.
We're finally getting out there. And so if you have a global company, maybe that's the audience that you need to reach just beyond the Cincinnati area. We go all over, not just countrywide. We're worldwide. So you can hit us up. This first question's from Matt. I love this question. Really sets the tone for heading into like the camp period and into the next season. There's been a lot of talk about the offense. Everybody's mentioned that Joe Burrow's got all his new weapons. And the optimism is off the charts for some fans, right? So the Bengals have a great proven core. They've got Burrow, Chase, Trey Hendrickson, CTB, Wilson, Hubbard, all these guys. We're expecting a big jump for Miles Murphy. The receiving room has never been deeper. Burrow's got his best pass-catching tight end. Chase Brown looks primed to take a huge jump. This year's draft class could be very essential to the teams. Mims could be a starter if he's not. You're going to have some great depth, maybe the best offensive line, easily the best offensive line, right, of Joe Burrow's entire life. And, Jenkins is going to have a role on this team that's pretty substantial. People have been talking well about Newton. Burton could be an explosive player to watch. So as a Bengals fan lifer, Matt says he's learned to balance his past trauma with a healthy dose of cautious optimism. And he said that formula has served him well. But his question is this: is the take on the roster out of balance with what you're seeing, and thus in the danger zone for the inevitable Bengal heartbreak? So he's all in on this being the best Bengals roster for quite some time. How do you feel about this optimism?
I think cautious optimism is probably the preferred approach here. I think you are setting yourself up a little bit. Because this roster is good, but there is a lot of change. There are a lot of questions that have to pan out. That said, look to the betting markets. They know, and you have a team that is in that top quarter of the league in odds to win the Super Bowl. Like, all you can do is put yourself there, and they're going for it. They have Burrow, they have T, they have Chase. Multiple Chases, multiple Browns. I mean, you've got a lot there on offense. I totally agree with you. You have the potential for Lou to get this group back on track. I think you heard a lot of optimistic conversation from him about that on Wednesday on the show. You can see it. You can always see the path. When it's June 21st, everybody sees the path, right? Oh, it's all every pick is going to be great. Every player that they brought in free agency is going to be a star. Nick Scott is going to be the best bargain we've ever had in free agency, right? These
Such
are
athletic
things that
safeties.
are said, right? These are the things that are said in June, and problems are going to arise. To me, I think they have a lot of variables on the roster, but the core, like this question says, God, it's strong. And that's why you're up there in that top quarter. Is you have the things that matter. You have the quarterback, you have the ability to have a dominant passing offense. If Burrow stays healthy, you have a chance to be elite at the thing that Super Bowl teams are all elite at. And that's what matters more than anything. The rest, you got to trust the continuity of the staff, the ability of Lou Anarumo in the past to put this thing together, of Zach Taylor to adjust on the fly. Like, that's part of this equation too, because there will be a lot of this stuff isn't going to work out. A lot of the things that you said are going to be things you're going to be bemoaning in week 5. So cautious is definitely a word that I would continue to throw in there, just because there are a lot of moving pieces that are new. But what else can you ask for other than saying you've got a lot of stars, including at the most important positions, and you are viewed as a Super Bowl contender on day one by everyone?
Yeah, what fun is cautious? Let's just go full optimism. This is the best roster they've had.
Hurt.
Who cares?
Asking about being hurt, okay? And there's a lot of scars here around
and
this
that
organization.
Caution is going to take any of that sting away if it goes south? Of course it's not. I mean, if you look at this roster, what position group really concerns you? I mean, outside of the secondary, there's a lot of questions. You don't know necessarily how that's going to work with the new safeties. You feel good about them. Von Bell's got a few more years than he did last time he was here. Dax Hill, I know you were banging the trade Dax bandwagon here earlier in the year, but if he does turn into a good cornerback, that solves a lot of issues too in the secondary for your depth. But outside of the secondary, is there any position group that really concerns you for optimism among these fans?
Yeah.
What moving pieces are you really afraid of right now?
You know, I'm concerned about right tackle. I mean, I think Mims is a rookie with limited experience. Can he be great? Sure. Trent Brown has played well at times. He's also, you know, he's a journeyman, and there's a reason that he's been at different places, and there's a reason why he was available for what they got him for. So there's some concern there. You look at age creeping in. When are we going to start to see age creep in with Hendrickson, with Rankins, with Hubbard, with Hill? You know, are you still have good years in them? You think so, but you at some point you start to see a slight fall off there. You need a lot of young players that have played well on defense. That a lot of young players to play well on defense that you've not necessarily seen them do things that you're going to be hoping that they can do. Miles Murphy, can he be a real guy? Like, can DJ Turner be a real guy? Can Dax Hill do something specifically that makes Lou Anarumo happy? Like, I don't, there's a lot of stuff there. There's just a lot of questions. Can Logan Wilson and Jermaine Pratt play better? Was that last year because of the uncertainty around them? Are you going to start to see age hit Mike Hilton at slot corner? Like, I just think there's these questions. There's a lot of good things. There's a lot of answers, but I just think there's a lot of variables and questions surrounding a lot of these players that you're counting on. And so I do wonder about that. That doesn't mean that they're in bad shape, because every team has these questions. Every team has questions like this, but I think that the Bengals are in good shape. Yes, they're a team that is going to contend for the Super Bowl if things go reasonably well. Absolutely. Burrow can get them there. And that matters. That's all that really matters. But the rest, you know, there's no slam dunks necessarily, specifically on the defensive side. There's a lot of things that you have to see play out still.
And this kind of leads us into another question here. This one is from David, and it's about our star quarterback who you touched on having the stars, right? Joe Burrow is working his way back, expected to be 100% at the start of the season. And there's no indication among the Twitter doctor experts that he's going to have any lingering issues. They've all said that he's going to be great to go. But with the season being as long as it is, And this is what David wants to know. Do you think that they might have any in-season load management with Joe Burrow? Now that we've seen that Jake Browning can run this offense, he can have a measure of success. Do you think there's going to be a quicker hook on him if they get out to a big lead and maybe to try and get him a little bit more rest, a little bit fewer reps? I don't think you've really seen that really work a whole lot or even get attempted much, but do you think it's something that they'll do?
We have seen Joe Burrow hop around on one leg with no chance to win the game in Tennessee last year in week 4 and refused to come out, essentially. I don't know that he refused to come out, but he didn't come out of the game. And we've seen that over time here. I mean, I go back to his rookie year. They're getting pummeled. He's getting destroyed in Pittsburgh. And they're down by 1 million. And he stays out there in the game. There's a sense of pride. Now, is that the evolution of Burrow that we'll see in a game where they're up? I think when you're up by a bunch, it's different. So, you come out, let Browning go finish him off, and you can hang out on the sideline. I think that certainly you take those opportunities when you get them. When they're down, though, I think that is a point of Burrow feeling like you're never going to see me quit as the leader of this team. I think that they need to start opening their minds to that a little bit more. And I do think the hook is more if Burrow is questionable in a game and it's like, there's a risk. There's a pretty big risk here. I do think that they would be more willing to let Browning go play. I think that's the case. I think that's part of the evolution here. Say, rather than you go out and risk tweaking your calf or popping your wrist or whatever the hell we're talking about, that is the latest thing that's an ailment that you're dealing with. Whatever's going on there maybe be more willing to let Browning go play a game. I think that's because of the way that he established himself last year and gained confidence, and what we've talked about this offseason with Joe, being a little more enlightened in that regard and understanding the big picture. So that's the load management. You're not going to see all right, weeks 4, 8, and 12, Burrow's not going to play or a series off for Browning. No. It's going to be situational, and it's going to be, maybe there's a 20% shift this year in, look, if you're a little hurt, let's sit you this week than there was the previous year. That doesn't mean it'll even come into play if he stays mostly healthy this year.
With him having some success in the back end of the season and not having a competition this year for the backup role, do you think that there's a leap that Jake Browning can make, or do you think we've kind of seen the top level of what he can do for this team?
Yeah, I think there's a leap I think Jake goes back to the drawing board after finally getting real playing time in the NFL and he attacks it the same way he did before he played, when he was trying to figure out how to break through. And that is, how do I get better? How do I make myself more established in this offense? Where can I take strides and use the film that he has now to get better? And I think that that's something he's done his whole career. It's a reason they liked him and kept him around. And he has a great opportunity to play off of that now. And I think an offseason of understanding what happened to him out there on the field, good and bad, will go a long way to making him a better player and a better backup. I think there's certainly more steps that he can take. He's going to be limited always, just because of physical skills. I mean, there's only so much power he's going to get on the ball. There's only, his size is different. I mean, there's certain ways that he's not going to walk out there and suddenly look like Carson Palmer when he walks out there. But I think he can find more angles to make things work for him. And more importantly, really, the Bengals have such better feel for how to work with Jake Browning now that they can make it work for him a little bit better the moment he shows up, and help elevate him and work on that stuff over the course of the offseason and camp and stuff like that.
Another Burrow question. This also spins to your profession. This is from Jeff. Since the beat writers never get Joe at his locker, how is that going to change with this new Hard Knocks series? Do you think it will?
Well, in terms of access and hearing from Joe, it changes, because not that we'll get him at his locker or Hard Knocks will get him at his locker. It's that, the most interesting thing I always feel like from Hard Knocks, and maybe I don't know, maybe Joe put a cover over these, but the cameras in the meeting rooms, where you hear and see what's happening in the discussions in those rooms is some of the best access that Hard Knocks has. That's where a lot of those real conversations have. So maybe, you saw a lot of that with Tua last year with the Dolphins. You would kind of got to know him and see him, mostly that stuff that happened in the meeting rooms. I think that's where you would get more access and knowledge of how Burrow operates. Again, though, will he throw a football into the corner and break that camera on accident? I don't know. I don't know how the Bengals or any of these teams will handle the in-season concept. I think, Miami handled it one way, but maybe these teams handle it differently. Maybe Burrow says they can go wherever they want to, but not in the meeting room. I don't know. But teams do have that kind of a say on certain things where they can decide what they do and don't want out there. And if Burrow says that he doesn't want his meeting room conversations out there, then there's a good chance that his meeting room conversations aren't going to be out there. So it depends on how they handle it. But yeah, I think that's typically, you're not going to see anything more from a straight media perspective. Maybe he would give them access off the field for a day. I seriously doubt it. Usually, the stars shy away from that there. You get more of some of the other guys that want that attention and want people to feel like more people need to know their story, and where Burrow maybe wants less people to know his story. So I don't suspect we'll get a ton more from Burrow in this. Can we shift gears over to our guy? Can we shift over to our guy, Eric Stanio, here for a second? Let's do it. It's Stanio time. Let's bring in our guy, Eric Stanio, a growler, a growl pal at
Growl pal.
A growl
What's up,
pal
guys?
where it all started. What's going on, brother? How are we doing?
Hey, good to see you. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday to you. A big Friday for
yes.
you. Your big Clanyo outing at the Reds game is tonight. Mark and I are going to be there. We're pumped.
Yes, the Growler joining Team Stanio Clanyo. It's a match made in heaven. We're going down the Reds game. We have over 400 people coming to this event, which is insane. So tickets for everyone. We've got swag. Look, we're giving away Team hats? Stanio gear.
We don't have hats again.
Branded bills.
He's setting the bar for us.
Different colors, hats for the kids. So it's, again, our tagline, find your home, strengthen your family. So it's like family event. And you got to ask your question when it comes to your realtor. What are you getting out of your realtor? Because we're giving away events quarterly. You're getting tickets. You're getting swag. Come on, join the Clanyo, right?
Join the Clanyo. I mean, look, you know it. It's the he's got the #1 real estate YouTube channel in Cincinnati at Team Stanio. Go over there, check it out. Everything you need to know about neighborhoods, buying, selling in Cincinnati, you name it. Everything's covered over there. Currently offering a free home evaluation for anyone who is thinking about selling their home. Again, the gifts just keep on giving, really. So that has in-depth comparable sales, and it's better than one of these estimates, although I do like searching on Zillow, but I need something I can trust. That's mostly just for invading other people's personal space.
That's right. Yeah. A lot of equity been earned in the last few years. So if you want to know exactly what that is, give us a shout. Happy to help.
Love that. All right. What do you got for me?
Okay, cool. Great interview with Lou this week. Really enjoyed that. And It was fun. You and Jay, just as these seasoned vets, knowing how to work the interview, how to work the room, so I had a few questions about kind of how long it takes to get good at interviews and the art of it, I guess. And like, you see this pattern, you kind of get used to it where you're kind of buttering up the interviewee at first, maybe a little flattery, maybe a few jokes, and then some easy softball questions. And then you sprinkle in the good stuff and, maybe the more difficult questions that they don't want to answer. So I just respect that. I love watching it. So my questions for you is like, how have you learned that over time? Do you learn that and also maybe a better question, do you have any horror stories or any interviews gone really wrong?
Well, I think that people spend their lives working on the art of interviewing and, go to school for it. And it's just a matter of, to me, any good interview is someone finding a way to be themselves in that and make the other person comfortable in both of those situations. Like finding the comfort zone, finding the connection with that person to ease them but you can't do it by being anything other than yourself, really. Like if you're a lighthearted joker, then that's how you make any, it's the same way you have any conversation and make anybody. Yeah. You can't, when it starts feeling fake and like bing, 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 I'm here saying my thing. Like that's not really at all, a way to make it. It's all about whatever you got to do to make somebody else comfortable.
You could sense that, like you guys have built a friendship and a relationship. I mean, I don't know if it's a friendship, but there's a depth of, you guys getting to know Lou and he knows you that you could, that came through in the interview.
Well, any good interview usually is a product of a relationship that's already been established. Like the hardest interviews in sports really are the ones. Well, the hardest interview in sports is being on the horse after the Kentucky Derby and having to interview the jockey who like doesn't necessarily know a ton of English and is bouncing on a horse and tired, and you're on a horse and you're trying to like lean a microphone out. That is the toughest interview in sports. But beyond that, it's just a cold pulling this person into a Zoom room that you've never met before interview. Those are the hardest. My horror story though, was from whenever the year that James Harrison was in Cincinnati.
Scary man.
Yeah, it's very scary, intimidating. Hard Knocks was there. So I guess this was 2013. So it's a good Hard Knocks connection here. That in the news this week. And he was making a switch from how they had previously used him. And they were moving him to the outside and putting his hand in the ground. And he was going to be, straight pat, whatever. They were somehow switching the scheme. And
that's what you want to do with a future Hall of Famer. Sure.
Well, they were going to move him. And this ends up being the point of the story. They were going to move him to do something that he did mostly at Pittsburgh. And so everyone's going over there to talk to him. I think there had been an injury or something, and he was taking over that spot. And there's a huge gaggle, and it's just so awkward whenever the huge gaggle is around someone specifically like James Harrison, who tolerates zilch. He will tell you at the beginning, no pregnant pauses or it ends. Like he'll tell you that before it starts. So when I talked about getting people feeling at ease, this is the opposite of that already. Everyone is standing there and no one is saying anything. And I'm like, I'm on the side thinking like, oh man, if someone doesn't drop the softball in here soon, he's going to end this before it starts. And so I just said something to the effect of like, how comfortable are you doing this change? I mean, the softest of softballs, like, and he goes, do you watch football? Yeah. And I'm like, occasionally. And he goes, did you ever watch me in Pittsburgh? And I was like, yeah, I saw it. He goes, yeah, I did it all the time. That's all I did. This is over. And he ends the whole thing. And everybody like tail between their legs, does the little soft walk off, hoping that he'd bring us back. And I just have to stand there like, I'm the one who ended this. It was all everybody. When all I tried to do was can we just keep this thing alive so we don't end up in a pregnant pause situation where he decides that's why he ends it. I thought that was the softest, easiest way to ease us into this conversation. It apparently was not. Apparently I threw at his chin.
What would you do? So if you go back to that moment, what would you do differently?
Shut up.
Let somebody else fall on that grenade.
No, I mean, there was no way to know that he would be offended by a question about what he's going to do next.
Sure.
So I don't. At certain times, it just happens. Like they go bad, right? Like there's no way you could change it. That's just
part of the job.
All right, we have one for you. We were talking about, we're all kind of in the middle of its vacation season for Cincinnati people. We have a bit of a debate here. What in your mind is the best Cincinnati quick getaway vacation spot? 'Cause I'm going to Michigan next week.
Nice.
Mart, you just got back from feeding your kid to the Sharks in on the Panhandle down there, right? 30A.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And you're going to Gatlinburg, Stanio, right?
Yeah.
So what do we
leave Sunday?
What do you think? Are you ranking those? I feel like we got to throw Hilton Head in there too, probably. That like the Outer Banks area. There's a lot of those there.
Yeah, I think if you run past our boot these, maybe it's Michigan, Gatlinburg, and then maybe just beach, right? So maybe it's
yeah.
So what's the order for you?
Yeah, for me, it's I'm booting beach in the summer. We're talking summer vacation.
Come on.
Yeah, summer.
I'm booting beach. it's a long drive. You're going down there, super hot. Now this, you guys, you haven't entered into this world, but we're a homeschooling family. Okay. And so beach in October, amazing. Okay. When everyone else is in school, that's when we hit our Florida trip. So I'm booting summer trip to the beach, running past very close to me. I'm actually was born in Michigan. I have family in Michigan, love Michigan, but I'm going to pass on Michigan slightly. But if you get up to the Great Lakes, it's amazing, especially July, August, when they get a little bit warmer. If you've never been to Mackinac, you've got to go to Mackinac Island. I grew up close to Warren Dunes State Park. You can pop over to Chicago. Awesome trip. Anything on the west side of Michigan. But I'm running with Gatlinburg, but with a caveat.
Wow.
Okay. Because
come on.
Look, now we all know Gatlinburg is, it's a thing, right? And there's airbrush t-shirts and taffy and knife shops and moonshine. Like, this is Gatlinburg, right? And old-timey photos. But what you do, and then there's Pigeon Forge, and you got to be really careful. If you have kids like I do, I have 5 kids. What I do when I'm driving into Pigeon Forge is I take that detour around Pigeon Forge so my kids don't see like gorillas hanging off skyscrapers and every type of putt and go-kart place and everywhere you can lose money. You can do that a little bit, but the key for us is we got to get in the hills. We got to hike, go see a waterfall, go hit the Smoky Mountain. We hike like all week, sit by the pool and eat pancakes. And if you do that, there's something to be said about Gatlinburg. I'm running with it.
That's fair. That's fair. I mean, I don't agree. I don't agree with it, but that's fine.
No, you're wrong.
I mean, I am currently a Michigan guy, although we're growing up, just because I'm with you. Like the extreme heat. I lived in Key West for 2.5 years, and I get PTSD in the summers going into Florida. Like, now you get it. It's not quite as bad if you go to the like Carolinas side, depending on where you go. But that like that Florida heat, that stickiness, like I have a problem with that. Michigan is great if your kids are younger because it's a quicker drive, which is a big deal when you have younger kids. You don't have to worry about things like, I don't know, sharks in the water or big waves and things like that. And if you go, especially if you go later and the water's warm enough really for you to get in, once you reach July 4th is kind of the point where the water really consistently warms up enough in Michigan. There's a ton of cool, fun beach towns for kids up there, from Saugatuck down to South Haven and St. Joseph and all of New Buffalo. They're all really good up if you want to go up that way. So I recommend that, especially if you have young kids and you're worried about a longer drive. Michigan gives you absolutely everything you'd want with young kids.
Yeah, you know what? You make a good point. Michigan's better with young kids when they're not at the age to know there's better vacations out there. You know? You can really get away with being like, hey, this is what we do in the summer. Isn't it cool that it's a little bit different than at home? Whereas like the beach, that's a totally tonal shift for them.
It's not like there's not a beach in Michigan. You're at the beach.
The whole water is surrounded by beach.
It's not a great beach. Let's just be honest with it. The Florida beaches, the Carolina beaches, it's a way better beach experience. And yeah, you got to go early in the summer before the heat is crazy. And sure, the drive is hard. And a fall beach trip sounds great, but you know what's harder? Homeschooling your kids. So I'll take a long drive over homeschooling my children. If you're going to do the fall trip, Michigan's great in the fall. The mountains, hiking is better in the fall. That's when you go into the mountains, go to the beach for your vacation.
I think what we've learned here is Michigan is great most of the year.
Most of the year. Yes, except in the winter. Everybody join the Stanyo Clanyo. You could be at the big Reds game event. I will be at the big Reds game event along with Mark tonight. Looking forward to seeing you
ambush
there.
Paul and Mark tonight.
Yeah, I'm ready. Bring your ambush questions. I'm ready for it. Let's go. Subscribe on YouTube at Team Stanyo if you are looking to buy or sell a home, or you know somebody who is. Email directly info@teamstanyo.com or go to www.teamstanyo.com to connect. Thanks, brother. We'll see you tonight.
All right, guys. See ya.
All right. There is our guy from Team Stanyo in the Clanyo. Well, heavy debate, heated debate in this one.
I mean, listen, if you're going to debate vacations, this is the time of the Bengals year to do it.
There's probably like 2 weeks on the entire schedule where you could say, let's dedicate like this amount of time to debating vacations and
this amount of
this is
emotion to it. Yeah, it's a hot topic, but you're not going to be like, all right, forget Monday Night Football. Let's get into Gatlinburg v. Michigan. Here we go.
Although I got to tell you, when you get deep into the season, if things are going sideways and you're exhausted and you just need anything else, I will go on a Gatlinburg rant for the ages. Trust me.
Let's hope that we don't need to hear that this season from you. Hopefully things are going well enough that they've got discussion topics. Here's what I have for you, right? So do you want to stay in Burrow land with another Burrow question or switch it up with an RPB?
Let's go RPB. Let's go RPB.
All right, this one's from Nick. And he's checking in from Burrow Country out in Jackson, Ohio, a town that we've probably both driven through plenty of times. His RPB. All right. So what run past boot? Joe Burrow having 10 or more interceptions, the defense having 15 or more interceptions, or the offensive line having 25 or fewer sacks surrendered.
All right. Okay. So I'm going to give a little history here as we talk about this. If you're a history buff. Joe Burrow, if you're talking about 10 or more interceptions, in 2021, he had 14. In 2022, he had 12. Last year, he had 6 picks in 10 games. So on pace to make it to 10. So Burrow getting 10 or more interceptions is kind of the norm. Defensive interceptions, you're saying 15 or more interceptions by the defense. Last year, they had 17. And in 2022 and in 2021, they had 13. So they end up about in that area every year. Offensive line sacks allowed. And I know this is going to be a sad thing, and Bengals fans are going to go back into a fetal tuck even hearing this. In 2021, they allowed 55 sacks in the regular season. In 2022, it was down to 44.
Nice.
Last year, it was back up to 50, partially because Burrow can't move, and then they had the Browning experience, and there's a lot happening there. But they were really better during the healthy Burrow portion. That said, there's only been 4 teams in the last 3 years that have had a season with 25 or less sacks allowed. Like, that is rare air. Last year, only one. The Bills last year allowed 24. That's as low as it gets. So that number is unfair, I would say, in this run passer boot to say 25. You could probably go all the way to 35 or 40 and still make this hard to pick it. But for that, you have to boot sacks allowed, even if they'll be better. I mean, they're not going to be in rarefied air. Burrow doesn't mind taking sacks, especially on third downs, gotta have it downs. And so you're going to have that. That's part of Burrow a little bit, even if he does start shifting. I think you have the best chance. I think he's going to go over 10 interceptions. That's kind of who he's been, and that's okay too. He takes some chances. The interceptions on defense, I pass on that. I think that's probably about where they end up. I don't think they're going to have some year where they're going to be way better than anything else. Maybe Geno Stone has that impact, which he had 7 picks for Baltimore last year. But I would run with Burrow here. The O-line thing, man, if they got that number in the 35 range, you're winning a lot.
Yeah.
Okay. So if it's 35 and Burrow's picks are 9 or 10, this team's winning a lot of games.
Yeah, this could have been a little bit more interesting question if it was just the O-line sacks allowed was the lowest of the Burrow tenure. You got to think that maybe with the shifts in the offense, maybe you're running the ball a little bit more, or getting it out in those screen passes a little bit more, a healthy Burrow taking fewer sacks, a better right tackle situation. You could possibly see that. But the rest of that kind of checks out. We do want you to keep sending those questions to the growlerpodcast@gmail.com. We've got a few good ones chambered that we'll save for next week. Let's switch it up with an ambush light. Are you ready?
Let's go. Ambush time. I'm ready. Let's go.
All right. This guy wants to know, what is Paul's next 4-part story going to be now that T. Higgins is signed? He's not as dramatic as last offseason, as the last 4-parter. So we're going to run past our boot. What is Paul's next 4-part series about? Why people with urinals are serial killers, why everyone should have a flag for every occasion, or why people on bikes are cars and shouldn't have special rules.
That's
from
very
Earl.
true. You know, and really, I need to emphasize the frustration with the people on bikes just biking in between all the cars when they're sitting at lights. Like that's high end stuff that is just maddening. It would be flags. I mean, look,
Yeah,
I
you
could
got to
talk.
run flags.
It's a 4-part series means you have so many things you have to say. Okay. And so many angles that you want to attack something with that you've got to spend a lot of time just on one part. I could do a whole part on grommets. Okay. And the importance of a good grommet and the different types of grommets and how they can go wrong. Okay. That's just one. Poles? Are you kidding me? Let's talk poles. I mean, that's just that grommets and poles alone is its own thing. I haven't even started talking about seasonality and the importance of freshness and all the different things you can tie in, custom flags, where to find them, the stores. I mean, there's no question that
Grommets and
flags,
Poles, the new
grommets and
podcast coming with Paul this fall.
dude, let's
Grommets
go.
and Poles.
If I can't get a sponsorship from the Oakley Flag Store, then I have no hope if I start this. No hope. And a lot of live pods down at the Flag Store for that one.
So are you going to boot then the urinal?
I'll boot serial killers.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't talk anymore about urinals. It's no one wants to read 4 parts about that involves tangentially peeing. Okay, no one wants.
Yeah, nobody wants your take about poles in the urinal situation or the plumbing, peculiarities with that. We don't need any grommet / urinal talk. Just you got your flags, you got your bikes. We'll move from there. Are you ready to jump into Take Workshop?
Yeah,
Our new segment. We got to because here's the thing. We're trying to build up this show. We love everybody that's on the journey with us as we kind of find our way. We're kind of finding some segments we like. We're getting good questions, but we're going to keep perfecting things until the season starts. Take Workshop is one of our newer segments, which we haven't been super committed to lately, but here it is. No better time to work on these takes.
Okay, here's my take that I have sort of in the back of my mind that I haven't really put out there, and I think it's already at a good place, and that is if we're in that time of year where we see a lot of players doing camps, right, where kids can show up and hey, come to John Smith's NFL camp, and it's him and there's a couple other players come and join him. This is great stuff. Like, this is so awesome. Kids, the experience of getting to go to these and be around their favorite players and run around for a day and get worn out and catch a football and see them and get a shirt or whatever it is. Like, these are really cool for kids. They love them. There's a reason why there's so many of them. But like any problem in our great country, sometimes the greed and the money gets too close to the good stuff, like just natural kid enjoyment. My take is that if you have a camp as a player and it is not either free or directly charitable, you are exposed. It is exposed you. Don't be doing this for the money. Exposed. When I see these camps and it's like, okay, come to whoever's camp, it's just $265 and all you get a hat or you get a shirt and a picture with the player where they run and they sell as many as they can. And so they run the kids through one area in front of a screen and then picture, smile. They just keep moving them on. There's like some interact, but do not charge these people. Okay. You don't need to. Any sponsor would be happy to come and cover whatever costs you have for the most part for these things. Or you can find a charitable element that's a part of it. If you are just charging, okay, and pocketing money off of these things, I know it's a business. There's always these businesses that are out there. These players don't need that. You're NFL players. You're making millions of dollars. At the very least, you're making almost $1 million in the worst case scenario. Like, you don't need to be trying to take a little bit of money from these families and these kids that want to have these experiences. Free camps, charity-driven camps, the end. If you're doing anything else, I've lost almost all respect for you.
So here's how you make this take better. Name names. You clearly have a few that you're like ready to burn. I don't know if they're local or different cities, but go ahead, throw them under the bus. Let's really elevate this, make it personal. Take a shot at a player camp. Be like, hey, you are garbage. $1,000 for a kid to go to your camp? Call them out. My second thing, what about this is like, does anybody have a free camp? Any player?
Yeah, lots of players do free
Okay,
camps.
so my next question is, do you really think that this is the ones that are charging, you think that they're just taking an envelope full of singles and 20s from these hardworking, football moms and stuff that send their kids? That money's not going to the players, right? Like that's got to be somebody in the players' circle, that maybe an old coach or something that helps out with the camp or something. That can't be. They're not charging to make themselves money, is my point here, right? Like maybe let's alter this take and throw it on the entourages or some of these guys that are trying to glean a little bit of cash off a dude they knew from high school or a guy they played college ball with. Like maybe those are the real sharks here that we need to direct this venom at.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're the outsiders but I mean, typically these players, like, look, they get a check, right? If you come do this thing for pro camps or whatever the organization is, we'll put it all, we'll do everything for you. You just got to show up these couple of days and then we'll pay you X thousands of dollars.
Yeah, that's
for
right.
that.
That feels like a gift.
But that's what it is. That's the operation, because they're charging. I just don't want to see families have to pay that amount of money. You want to limit it. You want to have lotteries. You want to find ways to get as many kids in there. Obviously, if you make it free, more people are going to want to come, especially if you have a high profile athlete. But I just don't like when it's really expensive for parents and kids to go do this. Or if it is, you better be giving them a lot more than they do, which is just not really the case. But
even the charity aspect gets tricky though, and that's where you really got to elevate your take too, and take a shot at some of these charities that aren't really charities or foundations that are just paying a lot of people in the admin space versus actually helping people and changing lives. Now the Bengals do a pretty good job with their charities. And but there are some cities that are just, I'm sure there's some players out there that have some shadier foundations and stuff like that, which would not happen here. But
yeah, at one point, I do believe I remember a conversation with an player, an agent who was pointing out, like, yeah, I started my foundation to get my tax shelter set up. And it was like, don't say the quiet part out loud. Like, we all know it, but we don't have to talk about it,
Yeah, exactly. But I like where this
That's
take
my
is
take.
going.
That's my take. I think it's solid,
free.
but you're right. I gotta have more venom and be more aggression if it's really gonna catch on. You're right. I gotta name names. You must name names.
You gotta make headlines here. You gotta get personal.
You're right.
And that's just the truth of it. I will say it is I've got to do the plugs. So I just wrapped up a spring tour for stand up, which is nice. It's nice to be back local for a few weeks. Here's a sign though that I was traveling too much. This has never happened to me in my career. Last weekend of the tour, I said the wrong city name on stage. I was in Charleston, South Carolina, and dropped, "Hey, what's up, Asheville?" And I was like, "Oh, that's a terrible way to start this show." And so I had to dig out of that for a good 10 minutes. But local plugs. I am going to be at Commonwealth Sanctuary on June 28th, headlining a show there. Joke Jim is in town July 2nd at the Madison Live, which is right next to the Madison Theater. So you guys can come out to those, and we'll talk some crap about flags and player foundations, whatever you want after those shows. So come out to those. Also, because I don't have a lot of local tour dates right now, I am coming to a few other cities. So if you live in Lexington, Atlanta, if you live in Wisconsin, Michigan, Las Vegas, any of those great places, you can shoot me a note. I'll give you the show details. But I also have a comedy special out on Dry Bar Comedy. You can go rent that if you want to watch stand-up comedy with your kids or, with your grandma who can't handle a lot of jokes. That is a clean comedy special. And I do have one on YouTube that's a little less clean, but still very widely respected. And a comedy album out on Amazon, Spotify, wherever you're listening to this podcast, you can go check out my stand-up there. So the plugs are a lot more virtual this week.
Love it. Are you working on anything? Are you working on
anything? So I had some little industry recognition happen to me a week or two ago, and they used my hometown in the press release they sent out, which is currently a suburb just outside of Cincinnati. I live in Loveland, and I feel like that's a bad look, right? Loveland has got to be the dumbest town name in the Cincinnati area. Like it just sounds like it was named by an important toddler or something. Like all my neighbors should be Care Bears. I live in Loveland. That's a very big adjustment to go from New York City to Loveland, Ohio. And the thing that kills me is like it's just a normal suburb. It's just a normal city. We have crime. That just sounds way more ridiculous when somebody's like, oh, someone OD'd in Loveland last night. And you're like, what? On joy? Did they OD on happiness? No, it was heroin. It's probably heroin. It's
Probably
still
heroin.
Ohio.
Yeah.
I don't know. Is there a worse town name in this area?
What about Dent?
Dent isn't great. It's not a great one either.
I've always kind of been like, is that real? Like I to a point where I'm always like, I feel like I need to double check it. You know, wait, I know it is, but is that real?
I mean, we'll throw it on Stanio next week, maybe the worst ones, but Loveland just sounds like too cutesy to sound like a real place. It just too saccharine for my liking. I like the weirder one. We're right next to Indian Hill. What a much simpler naming process.
Yeah.
People came to this area, Indians on a hill, boom, Indian Hill. We're done.
Indian Hill.
We're done here. This is never changing.
Oh, all right. Well, I apologize to the fine people of Dent. It just sounds weird. That's all. That's all.
What other towns do you hate in this area?
I don't hate any towns. I have nothing but love for absolutely everybody. Some of them maybe sound a little odd. You know, it's a good thing that nobody lives in Big Bone Lick. You know,
at least it's fun because it's like, oh, Big Bone Lick is kind of like cutesy if you know enough, right? That's a little bit more, oh, this could be something. It's a little wink involved with Big Bone Lick. A kid's not going to get thrown off by that. But Loveland, it just sounds absurd.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. All right. Well, we can wrap up here. We've got a little bit of a dad life. We were talking about vacations before. I took my kids and we went up to the swimming, the Olympic trials swimming, the inside of Lucas Oil Stadium, which was really cool this week. And they liked looking through binoculars for the most part. That's how I got us to pass the time there and them enjoy that. But a part of it was we were going to the Indianapolis Children's Museum, which I have talked about before, and I recommend to absolutely anybody that has kids to go to the Indianapolis Children's Museum. There, it's incredible. It is absolutely the best you'll find anywhere and worth the day trip. So combined the swimming and then the trip to the museum with in between, well, one night in the hotel. Let's find one with a good outdoor pool. It's summer. Finding an outdoor pool was much harder than I thought it would be, but I found one. It was in kind of a weirder area, but it was fine. Looked like it was going to be good. It's a Marriott. Like, I can't go wrong. And I get there and they say that the pool has been closed for winter damage, something that they did not advertise at all on their website. I didn't know until I got there. And I'm like, I have taken us to this weird neighborhood in Indianapolis to use this it's not even impressive. It's a small pool, but it's an outdoor pool. And I've brought us all the way here. And now you're telling me I have been talking this up the entire trip because they're begging to go swimming. And now I have to break their little hearts. I wanted to trot the girls into the front desk and be like, you tell them that you guys didn't tell anybody on the website, okay, that the pool is non-operational, okay?
You explain winter damage to these little kids.
It's false advertising. And the people at the front desk were very kind and apologetic. It wasn't their fault, like whatever. But man, that is a hard curveball to deal with that I was not expecting.
Did they have an indoor pool at least too?
No. They tried to call a nearby courtyard and asked the people at the nearby courtyard if I could come use their pool. And those people were like, yeah, no, that's not how any of this works. That will not happen.
Wow, they wouldn't even let you lend the pool. Like that's
liability for outsiders coming into their pool, apparently. And I could have gone to the other courtyard and canceled my current, but this place, it was a town. It had a suite, so I needed multiple rooms for the setup because it was myself, it was my mom, and then the two girls. We needed multiple bedrooms to make all of it work. So I was stuck.
Yeah. That's a really tough spot to be in because
Yeah.
they were promised a pool and they weren't given a pool. There's no coming back from that. You can't say
that
like,
was a
oh,
tough.
but
There
look,
was the only
a
thing saved us
fireplace.
was creating the biggest, most obnoxious, and really didn't even care if we broke stuff in like fort inside of the hotel, just standing on tables, standing on top of any. I didn't even care. Normally, I'd be like, please don't. I don't want you to break. Go ahead and break it, honestly. Like, I'm just in a bad place with this place. So we'll go. You guys do whatever you want. And they created an awesome fort, and it saved the day.
That's a great message we want all of our listeners to take. If you don't get exactly what you want, vandalize the hell out of a hotel room. You take what you want in this world. If you're not giving it, you take it, and you find fun, whether it's smashing lamps and just going full rock star on a hotel room. Throw the TV out the window. Who cares? You were promised a ghetto outdoor pool, and if you weren't given it for winter damage, you've got to just take what you want out of that room. That's our message. And don't do that at a Hilton because I'm part of the Hilton Honors family. So only at a Marriott. Go ahead and destroy their properties. Take them down.
Okay.
We do have a dad life.
That's not what happened. That's not what happened. Just for the sake of it, was
that's not the way we're going to clip up this show. We're going to clip up you ranting on it and me condoning the hotel vandalization. And you know what? We've got great advertisers. We want beer companies. We want people to listen to the show. But if you are, John Marriott and you own the chain and you're a big Bengals fan, sorry, we probably just lost you as a potential advertiser. But we do have a dad life question in our mailbag this week. This one's from Adam. If you do a dad segment this week, we are welcome to it. Can you talk about the progression of getting into the plot of Peppa Pig? We're still in the phase of watching random episodes with our 4- and 2-year-old boys who competently use their home urinal. A little urinal shade. Okay, future serial killer, sure, according to Paul. But anyway, when do you get into the plot of the show versus watching random shows?
I cannot stay awake for a single episode of Peppa Pig. I could have just woken up and it doesn't matter. Like if I'm sitting there and forced to watch it and whatever, we're sitting on the couch, like I can't pay attention to it. I can hardly stay awake for it. Especially if it happens in the evening. Like there's just I got no tolerance for trying to follow Peppa Pig plots. I can't get into. I don't
think there is a plot beyond they're British, and isn't that funny? Like they're British pigs. Like that's cool. That's your plot right there. And I think what this question is even asking, because he's talking about being in just random episodes popping up. There's no through line. There's no cliffhangers in Peppa Pig where it's like, oh no, the dad has been shot. Who shot him? Will he survive? Tune in next week on Peppa Pig. There's nothing like that. There's no through line, no story arcs you got to follow where a new neighbor pops up and, is he a nice guy or a bad guy? There's no hooks like that. It's just that every episode is a self-contained thing. Because it's meant to be watched randomly, right? Like you're not supposed to follow along. It's just when you're 4 and 2, you're supposed to watch 30 of them in a row or whatever without knowing what season you're in. It doesn't matter. Just flip them around. Blueies are the same. Like you can watch a bunch.
Yeah. I would say it's not like you're watching Peppa Pig and you're like, oh no, this is season 3 where Peppa needed to go through therapy for his anger management issues and anxiety. It's like, no, they're not running that story arc through to try to develop deeper. It's just they're gonna have their accents and they're gonna do silly kid stuff. So I don't think you ever need to go deeper. Bluey, go deep. Bluey's actually meant for adults, honestly.
Yeah, it is. But even those plots, it's just they're still self-contained, but you can at least sit there and enjoy it. It's way more enjoyable watching a Bluey episode or 5. That's one of the few shows that the kid will get bored before you, and they're like, all right, let's just go play outside. And you're like, hold on, let's get one more Bluey in here.
Yeah, absolutely true. All right, well, we will be back next week. So look forward to that. We're still in the deep. We're in the deep of traveling season, including to Michigan. And doing it happily. And so we'll be putting up episodes. You never know what's going to come up next, but make sure you check in to the site, follow on YouTube. And again, if you have interest in being a partner with us into the season, let us know. We're talking about all our season stuff right now. So give us a holler, thegrowlerpodcast@gmail.com, and you can send all your questions that you want answered to that as well. So, all right,
And
thanks everybody for listening. Everybody listen. We will talk to you next time on Dey Light. Have a good one.